The courtroom was packed, cameras flashing as Drake sat at the defendant's table, his face tense but unreadable. What was supposed to be a powerful move against Universal Music Group UMG had quickly spiraled out of control. The world's biggest hip-hop star, known for dominating charts and selling out stadiums, suddenly found himself on the receiving end of humiliation that no amount of fame could protect him from. Reports say Drake's lawsuit against UMG was meant to send shockwaves through the industry, but instead, it completely backfired. The judge's words cut deep, and the reaction across the courtroom left fans stunned. Could this really be the downfall moment for Drake? Or was this just another trial in the long road of hip-hop's most controversial star? Stay tuned, because what happened inside that courtroom is something no one saw coming. The story begins, not in a concert arena or on a glamorous red carpet, but in the hushed, tense atmosphere of a courtroom. Drake, one of the most powerful and commercially successful rappers alive, had stunned fans and industry insiders when he launched a legal battle against Universal Music Group UMG, the titan of global music. The lawsuit was framed as an effort to reclaim control over his masters, royalties, and future rights. To many, this seemed like the bold move of a superstar who had grown tired of industry politics and wanted full independence. But as the legal process unfolded, it quickly became clear that this wasn't going to be an easy win. Drake's legal team entered the courtroom with confidence. They presented their case as if it was ironclad claims of unfair contracts, withheld earnings, and industry manipulation. Supporters in the gallery whispered in approval. Fans outside waved signs, reading justice for Drake. But sitting across the room, the representatives of UMG appeared calm, almost amused. They had seen this play before. The first blow came when UMG's attorneys submitted a mountain of counter-evidence contracts signed years ago, financial documents, and detailed statements showing that Drake had not only agreed to the terms in question but had profited massively from them. What was framed as exploitation by UMG was suddenly painted as a fair and legal agreement, one that Drake had willingly signed at the height of his career. Then came the turning point. As the judge reviewed the evidence, reports describe his tone shifting from neutral to almost dismissive of Drake's claims. Witnesses say the moment was chilling. The judge directly questioned Drake's team about inconsistencies in their arguments. If these agreements were so unfair, he asked, why did the plaintiff renew them multiple times? The room fell silent. That single question cracked open the entire foundation of Drake's lawsuit. Murmurs spread across the gallery, and UMG's side quietly smirked at the unfolding drama. Even some of Drake's most loyal fans looked uncertain. The humiliation deepened when the judge outright dismissed one of Drake's key claims. He stated that the evidence not only failed to prove exploitation but suggested Drake had benefited disproportionately compared to other artists under UMG. This wasn't just a legal setback, it was a public embarrassment. Media outlets exploded with headlines within hours. Drake's case collapses in court, and UMG humiliates rap superstar. Social media flooded with reactions, some sympathetic, others ruthless. Memes spread like wildfire, mocking Drake for trying to take on a giant and losing so badly. The energy in the courtroom shifted. Instead of a hero standing up to a powerful corporation, Drake now looked like a celebrity caught overplaying his hand. Journalists noted the frustration on his face, the whispers between him and his lawyers, and the uncomfortable silence that followed each of the judge's remarks. But perhaps the most damaging moment came when UMG's attorney delivered his closing argument for the day. He leaned into the microphone and said, "This case is not about justice. This case is about ego. And sometimes, ego blinds even the most successful among us." The courtroom gasped. Drake avoided eye contact, his shoulders tensing as the weight of the words hit. Outside the courthouse, fans gathered in clusters, some defending Drake passionately, others shaking their heads in disbelief. One supporter shouted, "This isn't over. Drake will bounce back." While another admitted, "I don't know, man. This looks bad." Inside the industry, executives and artists whispered about the implications. If Drake could be humbled this way, what did it mean for others trying to take on the labels? Was the system truly unshakable, or had Drake simply miscalculated? By the end of the first day, one thing was undeniable. The lawsuit had not only backfired, but it had shifted the narrative completely. Drake walked into the courtroom as a challenger of industry corruption. He walked out humiliated, his credibility questioned, his motives doubted. But this was only the beginning. The legal battle was far from over, and the deeper layers of UMG counterattack were yet to be revealed. What came next would determine whether this was just a setback or the unraveling of Drake's empire. The second phase of the courtroom battle made it clear. This wasn't just about contracts or royalties anymore, it had become a war of reputation, legacy, and survival. Universal Music Group (UMG), instead of simply defending itself, went on the offensive. They turned what was supposed to be Drake's moment of empowerment into a full-scale public takedown. UMG's legal team wasted no time unveiling their strategy. They produced timelines, emails, and behind-the-scenes communications that painted Drake not as a victim but as a shrewd businessman who had knowingly profited from the very system he now called unfair. One document showed that Drake's tour profits had been boosted directly by UMG's promotional spending, millions of dollars poured into his brand. Another revealed that Drake's streaming royalties had been renegotiated multiple times in his favor. As the evidence piled up, the narrative began to shift in dangerous ways. Instead of appearing as a revolutionary artist taking on a corporate giant, Drake was being portrayed as an entitled superstar trying to rewrite history when it no longer suited him. Commentators online were quick to point out the irony. "How can you call out exploitation?" one fan tweeted. "When you've been the one benefiting for over a decade." The humiliation deepened when a former UMG executive was called as a witness. Calm and collected, he described Drake as one of the most strategically protected artists in modern music. He claimed that while other rappers struggled with harsh contracts, Drake had always been given flexibility and privileges that others could only dream of. The implication was sharp. Drake wasn't fighting for justice. He was fighting because his ego had been bruised. The courtroom buzzed with energy as UMG's attorney summarized the day's evidence. "Your Honor, this is not a case about unfairness. This is a case about dissatisfaction." The plaintiff, Drake, built an empire off these agreements. Now that he wishes to rewrite his narrative, he wants to blame the very institution that made him. That is not justice. That is opportunism. Those words sent shockwaves across the industry. Within hours, entertainment outlets were blasting headlines. UMG destroys Drake's lawsuit with shocking evidence. Judge turns on Drake, claims don't add up from king to cornered. Drake's courtroom collapse. Social media turned brutal. Memes depicted Drake sitting in court looking defeated, while others mocked his attempt to sue the very label that had helped build his empire. Hashtags, like #DrakeCourtFail and #UMGV's Drake trended worldwide. Even celebrities chimed in, some with sympathy, others with sharp criticism. Rival rappers threw subtle jabs on Twitter, while fans debated whether this was the beginning of Drake's downfall. Behind the scenes, sources revealed tension within Drake's own camp. His legal team was reportedly divided on strategy, unsure whether to push forward aggressively or seek a quiet settlement. Drake himself, usually confident and composed, appeared rattled. Witnesses described him whispering furiously to his lawyers, his frustration barely hidden from the cameras, watching every move. But perhaps the most humiliating moment came when the judge issued a stern warning. He accused Drake's team of wasting the court's time with weak claims and emotional rhetoric. That line alone became headline gold, repeated endlessly on television and social media. Clips of the judge's remarks went viral, further damaging Drake's credibility. For UMG, this was a masterclass in control. Not only had they defended themselves, but they had also exposed Drake in ways that threatened his reputation outside the courtroom. Industry insiders noted that UMG's dominance wasn't just about contracts or money, it was about power. And in this case, they flexed it ruthlessly. Meanwhile, Drake's fanbase was split down the middle. Some stood by him, arguing that even if his lawsuit stumbled, his artistry and impact could never be erased. Others, however, began to distance themselves, frustrated by what they saw as arrogance. "He should have known better," one fan wrote on Instagram, "taking on UMG like that was career suicide." By the end of the second week, the damage was undeniable. Drake's lawsuit, once positioned as a bold act of rebellion, had turned into a public spectacle that left him cornered and humiliated. His credibility was at risk, his legacy questioned, and his opponents emboldened. Yet, amid the chaos, one question loomed: would Drake retreat quietly, or would he double down in a desperate attempt to reclaim control? The next phase of this battle would determine whether this was merely a setback or the defining downfall of hip-hop's most commercially dominant figure. Drake walked into that courtroom believing he could change the game, but instead, the game changed him. What began as a bold stand against Universal Music Group ended with the world watching his confidence unravel in real time. The judge's harsh words, UMG's relentless counterattack, and the viral humiliation all left scars that will follow Drake long after the case closes. But if history has taught us anything, it's that hip-hop thrives on conflict. Every loss, every humiliation, can become fuel for the next era. Will Drake turn this embarrassment into a comeback story? Or has UMG successfully reminded everyone that even the biggest superstar can be humbled? One thing is certain: this is far from over. If you want every update on Drake's next move, UMG's response, and how this courtroom war reshapes hip-hop, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the real drama is just beginning.